right, lesson 4 is an overview of meteorology and some of the terms that you'll be seeing with that. Here's a little cartoon just showing that the meteorologists can sometimes be the enemy of the people because they can get the forecast wrong or forecast things that we don't want to hear about. Okay, so weather and climate. Difference between these. Weather is more of a right here, right now, and climate is long term. So weather is the condition of the atmosphere at any particular time and place based on these conditions: the air temperature, air pressure, humidity, clouds, precipitation, visibility, and wind. Air temperature is just how hot or cold it is. Air pressure is the force of the air above an area. So we talked about that in a previous lesson. Humidity is the amount of water vapor in the air. Here in Iowa, it gets hot, it gets humid because there's a lot of water vapor, and that's what can cause our heat indexes to end up being higher because that water vapor makes it feel hotter than it is. Clouds are visible masses of tiny water or ice above Earth. Precipitation is any form of water that falls from clouds and reaches the ground. Visibility, the greatest distance one can see. So the only time we really hear about weather or meteorologists talking about visibility is when there's either Canadian fires, where there's smog in the area, or when it's blizzard conditions, or if it's pouring down rain, so on and so forth. Wind is the horizontal movement of air. We often talk about wind speed. Climate is our average weather, or the accumulation of daily and seasonal events over a long period of time. So think long term. So if you had to describe what is the weather like in Iowa, you would definitely say, well, there's 4 seasons. Okay, that's what the climate of Iowa includes. It includes 4 seasons. But if you go down to the equator, you're not going to get the 4 seasons. You're going to have warm, sunny, maybe rainy conditions, but you're not going to have snow. So there's part of your difference between the weather and the climate. Okay, satellite view of the Earth. Geostationary satellites are satellites that travel at the same speed as the Earth spins, so it remains in the position above the same spot on Earth. So if the Earth is here and it's spinning, and this satellite is also spinning, going around the Earth, this satellite is going to stay above the exact same point as both of them go around, as this one orbits and the Earth spins. And then with satellite views, the clouds on these satellites look like they're white because it's sunlight being reflected back. All right, meteorology is the study of the atmosphere and its phenomena. Anything that fell from the sky or is seen in the air were called meteors at one point. Meteorologists have college degrees in meteorology or atmospheric science. This includes lots of math, physics, and chemistry if you're interested in becoming a meteorologist. We also talk about storms of all sizes. A middle latitude cyclonic storm are storms outside the tropics in the northern hemisphere, and the winds spin counterclockwise. So you can see here that the wind, we kind of see a counterclockwise spiral here. Hurricane is a tropical storm with rotating clouds and surface winds in excess of 74 miles per hour. Thunderstorms are tall churning clouds accompanied by lightning, thunder, gusty winds, and heavy rains. And tornadoes are intense rotating columns of air that extend downward from the base of a thunderstorm. Weather map. We'll be getting some practice on reading weather maps with this unit. So low pressure is represented by a red L that we can see here. And low pressure is often known for having lousy weather. So if you can think of low and lousy, that would be good to remember. H is high pressure, and you'll see the blue H up here. And that is often happy weather or fair weather. We have our circles that would represent individual weather stations. Now, in this case, they actually put the wind speed and direction at each of the weather stations. But if they didn't have the wind speed and direction here, it would just be a circle. But if you ever see the symbols here, it means there is a weather station there. Okay, wind direction is the direction from which the wind is blowing or where it comes from. So you'll notice here it's pointing down and left, which would be southwest winds, meaning it's coming from the southwest. So I want you to think about this as being like an arrow, and the wind speed, which is kind of the lines off of the arrow, is where it's coming from, and then the dot would be like pointing in the direction that it's going to. So that's important to know for wind speed. Wind blows around the highs and lows. It goes clockwise and outward from highs, and we're only talking about the northern hemisphere right now. It's going to go clockwise and outward from highs, and it's going to go counterclockwise and inward towards the lows. And then once it goes in from the lows, it's eventually going to rise to form clouds. A front is a line along which there is a sharp change in temperature, humidity, and wind direction. So this blue and red line here, kind of red right there, and this red line here and the purple line, those are all different types of fronts. And you can look at the key over here to determine what type it is. We'll get into the types of fronts later, but it is good to be able to tell that those are the lines that are the fronts. Okay, so weather and climate in our lives. Important, because this is what helps us decide what clothes we wear. And climate influences what we buy. Climate determines what crops to plant. You're not going to see much for cotton planted around here because it needs warmer temperatures. You're going to see that more in the south, in the dry areas. Weather determines if crops grow to maturity. And climate determines how we build and insulate homes. Your insulation is going to look a lot different down at the equator than it is up in Alaska or the northern Canada, so on and so forth. Okay, other impacts. Health impacts of weather and climate. Cold can cause frostbite or hypothermia, depending on whether it's what conditions you have. Hypothermia can just be your body temperature is getting too low. Hypo means low. And frostbite, if you have your fingers or toes exposed to the cold, even your nose, you could get frostbite on each of those places. Heat can cause heat exhaustion or heat stroke. Arthritic pain is common with high humidity and low pressure. So if you have a relative that says that they can sense a storm coming, there's a good chance that that could be due to the arthritis. Heart attacks tend to occur when abrupt changes take place in like air pressure or weather in general. Headaches occur when we squint due to hazy skies or bright overcast clouds. Now, just because these are some possible health impacts does not mean they happen to everyone. It depends on the weather, and it depends on how long you're exposed to the weather. Other effects: colder or warmer temperatures than normal impacts heating costs. Kind of self-explanatory. Weather events or snow and ice can cause business closures and increased hours for plowing and road treatments. Dry spells can cause a shortage of food and lead to starvation in some areas. Extreme weather events can cause property destruction, and we can also get fog delays. So lots of things can be impacted by our weather and our climate. And here we've got our nice guy with our arthritis who says, it's going to rain. Okay,